welcome to The Point of View here on Channel 1 Television. This is your favorite current affairs show. We bring you the right guests, ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. We are in a big week discussing the budget. A week ago, the budget was presented by the finance minister, and then in our last show, he was on this set answering questions on his budget. Well, his opposite number is also here because the budget debate in Parliament begins on Tuesday, and so prior to that, the former Minister of Finance, who is MP for Karaga, who is now the chair or the ranking member of the very important Finance Committee, he will lead the MPP's economic charge in Parliament. He's on The Point of View to give us some insights into why they think this budget is dead on arrival. Stay with us.
Step up with DSTV and we'll show up by giving you more incredible entertainment.
Going to have a little fun.
Upgrade your subscription between the 13th of January and the 31st of March and get an even higher package for a whole month on us.
Buckle up, here we go.
There's nothing better than putting a little bit in but getting a lot out.
Time to boost some office morale. Incredible!
When you want to build a future, you gotta know what you want.
Step up and we'll show up on your home of entertainment, DSTV.
Welcome back tonight with the former Minister of Finance, who's also the MP for Karaga. He is now the newly named ranking member of the Finance Committee, a very powerful committee indeed. Honorable Mohammed Amin Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bernard.
Clarify for me, some people call you Amin Anta, some call you Amin Adam. Which is which? What is your name?
It's Amin Adam, Mohammed Amin Adam. Anta is a nickname actually, which I got from childhood. So
Anta, so what does it mean?
Anta is an Arabic word, which means you.
You?
You. So Bernard, you, Anta.
Anta, is it true that you used to teach economics at for Tamale? I met some people who said when they were writing their exams, you were doing free economics tuition for them. Is this correct?
Yeah, I taught economics at secondary school. I also taught economics at Polytechnic, Tamale Polytechnic at some point when I was doing my national service.
So your primary profession, you consider yourself, because you have many qualifications, what's your primary? Are you an economist or you are a finance person? What are you?
I'm a mixer. Generally, I have worked in the field of economics for a long time. I've studied economics, BA, MPhil, and even my PhD is in energy and petroleum economics. It's a section of economics.
Okay.
So I can say an economist.
So your principal role is that of an economist?
Economics, yes.
I see. As against some ministers of finance who have been accountants.
Yes.
Some have been, for example, Banredu was a chartered accountant,
Yes.
Setekwe was a chartered accountant, Tax, Keno Ferrata was an investment banker.
Yes.
Osafo was an engineer. Dufour is an economics finance mix.
Yeah.
I see. How does economics help in the finance ministry? Because there's so many things going on. What emphasis does it give you versus, say, an accountant?
Well, I think that financial economics is a component of economics generally. And economics has different components or branches, if you like. You have energy economics, financial economics, but all of them will require you to study the basics of economics. And so anybody who finds himself within these branches really can appreciate economic issues. And so the issue about the Minister of Finance, even though we're dealing with money, is controller and accountant general who really deals directly with the money and the cash inflow and the cash outflow. But we at the Ministry of Finance basically, analyze economic issues as they relate to the people, and then we take economic decisions. And so you really need grasp of your economics to be able to do this job. This doesn't mean that only economists can do this job. As you said, even engineers have worked at the ministry as ministers, because you have technical people across the various areas of what we handle, and they will advise you appropriately.
I see. So you are I can say, the leader of the economic side of the opposition. Is that correct to say? Or the finance? Just explain how this works, because I haven't heard you talk until the budget properly. Even though there are many issues in Parliament, you haven't really spoken until the budget.
Yes.
So what is your role within the minority?
Well, in the minority, you have people who have experience and knowledge in law, and those in economics, and those in finance.
Okay.
But the privilege I have is having served as, Minister for Finance. The caucus has invested confidence in me that I can lead when it comes to finance and economic issues, and that I believe is the reason they chose me as ranking member on finance, so that checkmate my brother Atu Forsen. Same way he checkmate me.
Okay. So is it tit for tat time?
Yeah.
Is it like tit for tat?
It's not tit for tat. It is important we recognize that opposition is important in this country.
Good.
And this country needs not just opposition, but strong opposition.
Good.
Because government can get off track, particularly issues that relate to economic decisions that affect the people. You just cannot make certain mistakes. And therefore, you need somebody who has been there and who knows how these things are done, who has learned lessons that he will want to share on how to avoid some of the pitfalls, so that at the end of it, all the people we serve are really protected and get the best of interest that we serve. Yeah.
So, what is MPP's general? What is MPP saying? And let me frame the question properly, because I think prior to the budget, there was a whole discussion about, is the economy as good as is being said? So, for example, when President Mahama made the transition team, he said that they believe that the economy is in a much worse position than we are being made to believe. He made that point in front of President Akufo-Addo. Then his spokespersons also started saying the same thing. So, in that build-up to the budget, when the Statistical Service released the GDP data a day to the budget, the MPP, for example, Gideon Buako, triumphantly said, this confirms what we've been saying. Is that the basis for all the controversy around the budget? The idea of what kind of economy did MPP leave for NDC? Is that the main issue here?
Well, I think it's important, because if you have to, manage the economy this year, you are building on the economy last year and or previous years. And so history is important in this context. If the fundamentals were not good last year, it will mean that it will have to take time for the economy to recover this year.
Okay.
If the fundamentals were good, then you are building on a good foundation.
Okay.
And so we expect that the economy will improve faster and significantly. But the new government, right from the beginning, tried to paint a certain picture of the economy they inherited. I think that they wanted to just, give excuses by saying that the economy was bad, it was criminally mismanaged, the economy was in crisis, so that with the goodwill that they have, they can be able to push, certain policies, however bitter those policies are. And people will say, yes, we understand, because they inherited a very bad situation, and so let's bear with them. So that was, in my view, the narrative that they created. The president said that at SONA, he repeated it at the National Economic Dialogue. The Minister for Finance was then to come and use figures to confirm that narrative, as we saw in terms of the fiscal balances that the minister announced. But you see, to assess an economy, you will have to look at various facets of the economy. We have the real economy, then we have the financial economy, and then we have the fiscal economy. Right. If you look at the real economy, everything showed that the economy we handed over to them was a stronger economy.
Stronger than which one?
Stronger in the sense that before COVID, in fact, even before we took over from them in 2016, the economy grew by 3.4%. In 2015, it was actually 4%. 2016, 3.4%.
Okay.
The MPP took over and were able to accelerate economic growth. The average growth between 2017 and 2019 was about 7%. Average growth. Inflation was single digit. Indeed, single digit from 2018 to 2020. It was a single digit. In fact, the longest single digit that we have ever experienced in our history as a country. Right? Then COVID struck. And then things went haywire to the extent that we had to borrow. growth actually came down to about 0.5%. In 2021, it went up to about 5%. But then the Russia-Ukraine war also struck, and supply chains were disrupted globally. So every country suffered. So our growth came down again to about 3.1% in 2022. So the projection for 2023, that was when we accepted an IMF program. The projection for 2023 was a growth of 1.5% for 2023. But the economy grew at 3.1% instead, defied all odds. And that was why we said that the recovery had begun from the crisis that every country faced as a result of the global happenings.
Okay.
So from 2023 to 2024, because we grew at 3.1%, the projection for 2024 was also 3%. Later revised mid-year to 4%. But the economy eventually grew by 5.7%. Again, defied all the projections, to grow at 5.7%. So the recovery has been strong, has been faster, and people must acknowledge that.
He's pushed back on that at two. He says the main source of the 2024 growth would be mining in the industry side, a lot of which he claims will be illegal. The second point was that because a lot of your debts you did not pay, it gave you a lot more space. So for example, your debt to GDP reduction, he attributes to the fact that because your debts due in 2024 were not paid, is not a real-time picture of the real situation of debt to GDP. It's just because of the temporary relief of the non-paid debt for 2024, which he believes you have essentially pushed the can down the road, because in 2027 he's paying, 2028 he's paying. So he's saying that it's not a realistic view to use 1 year's growth to say that we are recovering if you don't go into those details that he mentions.
Well, but this is the point. First of all, I'll respond to the mining issue.
Yeah.
Of course, mining is a major part of our economy, and therefore the growth of mining really should be seen as playing its role in accelerating the economy. But the reason they usually refer to mining is because they think the mining sector doesn't create so many jobs, and therefore if your growth is anchored on mining, then you are achieving a jobless growth. Yeah. That is the point I think they try to make. But is it the truth? No. If you look at the data released by the Ghana Statistical Service, mining and quarrying grew at 9.4%. Somebody will say gold grew at 19%, but gold is a subcomponent of mining and quarrying. So you can say within mining and quarrying, the contribution of gold in the growth is 19%. But gold cannot stand at the same level as information and communication. Because while information and communication is a whole, gold is a subcomponent of mining and quarrying. So if you look at mining and quarrying together, it grew by 9.4%. And that's where you feel the effect of mining.
But a lot of that is fueled by the increase in the price of gold.
Yes,
which then leads to high revenue. So similar to the 2011 oil, you can have growth because revenues have increased. But for enclave economies, if employment doesn't increase and the pass-through into the value chain does not increase, it may be growth nonetheless, but it's not transformative growth.
No, but if revenue increases and you don't invest that revenue, you won't get the growth. So that should be borne in mind. The revenue that you get must be invested and invested in the productive sectors to generate the growth. But even before then, let me complete the point I was making on the contribution of mining. So mining and quarrying grew by 9.4%. Construction grew by 9.6%. So why didn't the minister say that the growth was influenced by construction? Digitalization, information and communication grew by 15.8%. Why didn't the minister say that the growth was influenced by information and communication, or digitalization for that matter? So this is a misrepresentation of facts in my view. Right. Then the second issue you raised is about the debt we are not paying.
Yes.
Look, let us call a spade a spade. If the economy is growing, it's growing. Look at the pre-COVID era, when we're not paying our debts, when we grew at 7% average. We're paying our debts. And so growth is growth. If you don't pay your debt and the money you would have used to pay the debt, you don't invest it well, you will not achieve that growth. So 5.7%, and the areas that are bringing the growth, mining and quarrying, construction, information, how are they related to debt payment?
Well, he was talking about the second was debt to GDP.
Yes, the debt to GDP
because so the point is, this second question was on debt to GDP, that if you are not paying your debt and you've kicked the debt to next 2-3 years, the way you quantify the debt for this year, debt to GDP for this year, may be low but artificial.
No, I don't think so, because if you were actually paying your debts, that would rather reduce your debt to GDP, because the debt stock will reduce. So I don't see the point he's trying to make. The reality is that when they left government in 2016, the debt to GDP was 73%. 73% until the GDP was rebased in 2018, and then the figure changed to 56%. Now, we had to borrow because we're faced with crisis in 2020. And so the debt levels increased to about 80%, 80.2% of GDP. But it takes a debt strategy to even declare debt standstill. It takes a debt strategy and skilled negotiation to even negotiate your debts down. It takes a good debt strategy. And so we employed that good debt strategy. And then we declared a debt, we took advantage of, opportunities for declaring debt standstill through the G7 framework, G27 framework. That's what we did. And then we went ahead to negotiate these debts, to the extent that we got a debt cancellation, outright debt cancellation of about $4 billion US. And then we got debt service relief of about $7.5 billion US. If it is not a debt strategy which is backed by skilled, negotiation, you cannot achieve that. And so I don't know why the minister will run away from that.
Let me ask my own question.
Yes.
Forget about two now.
But Ben, I think I need to conclude on this. So you have a debt stock, in percentage of GDP, which measures your debt sustainability. That went up to 80.2%. By the time we exited in 2024, it came down to 61.8% of GDP. 61.8% of GDP, which is lower than the pre-COVID levels of 65.7% in 2019. They should tell you that we are even doing better in terms of debt sustainability than COVID, than the period before COVID.
Based on debt to GDP.
And that is what the IMF measures, debt sustainability.
But let me ask you...
Because if your debt cannot generate GDP growth, then what kind of debt is it? This is why, Bernard, we are saying that in spite of the fact that we borrowed, there's no doubt about that, every government borrows, but we added 20 billion United States dollars to the size of GDP.
Okay.
It means that you borrowed and invested in the productive sector. This is why as GDP grows, your debt to GDP shrinks. You understand? Assuming you don't borrow more. And we haven't borrowed more. 2023, we didn't borrow externally. 2024, we didn't do external borrowing as well. Just as we're not paying, we were also not borrowing. So, and this is why, in between September and October 2024, actually, our debt level reduced by 68 billion Ghana cedis.
Compared to previous years?
Yes, 68 billion Ghana cedis we saw in debt reduction. So you didn't borrow, you rather saw a decline in debt.
The main point with this is when we compare political parties, it's easy to have a debate because Atu has said this, you've said this.
Yes.
But for somebody like me sitting from the outside, in your 8 years, the amount of commercial credit you took was too much, right? So your multilateral debt and bilateral debts were not that quickly growing as your Eurobond forays. You went to Eurobond many times. So that chunk was very big. That, a lot of people believe, set us on an unsustainable path for debt. When you chose to do the domestic debt exchange, then people's savings and people's investments were given haircuts. Now, a lot of people say you cannot be praising yourself for partially bringing us out of a hole you created by your own reckless borrowing. This is the view. Forget about two forcing. You brought us here in the first place. So the least you can do is to take us out in a sustainable way. So don't compare yourself to 2016. Compare yourself to what you were doing until those forays into the market led us to the unsustainable debt path.
Well, I don't know how anybody would describe borrowing to address, the problems associated with COVID was reckless borrowing. I don't know if anybody is right to call that reckless borrowing, or you borrow to address issues relating to the financial sector cleaning. when we knew that a lot of the banks were going down the drain. I don't know if it is right to describe that as reckless borrowing, but I'm saying that it takes a government that understands debt dynamics to be able to borrow and be able to negotiate a reduction in its debt. And so if we borrow to unsustainable levels, the question should be, by the time we left, were the debt sustainable or not? And I can tell you
they are saying no, because you owe so much and they have so many things to pay.
No, but the debts have been published by them. The debt figure has been published by them. They themselves have published that the debt to GDP is 61.8%. It is not my figure. It's not my data.
Yeah,
it's in the budget.
I mean, beyond the debt to GDP, for example, when Atibosin came here, let me quote him, we have domestic bonds that we have inherited in the next 4 years put together. We have to repay 150.3 billion, of which in 2027 alone, we have to repay a debt of 57.6 billion. 2028, we have to repay 52.5 billion. Then he goes on to talk about commitments you have made, some of which you did not even make allocations for. For example, he says they owe contractors and suppliers 67.5 billion. Basically saying that the way you have structured the repayments, a lot of whatever they get will be used to pay debt you contracted.
But Bernard, you are
so that's the point he's making.
He's assuming that we went into this election to lose. If we won the election, will we say what he's saying? And so government assets are government assets. Government liabilities are government liabilities. It just happens that they won the power and they have to pay. Just as we paid debts when we took over from them in 2016, we paid debts. You remember we had to pay the Euro bonds that they took. And not just that, energy sector debt of $2.5 billion. And so I don't see why it will be running away from the issues that they ask Ghanaians to vote them for to come and address.
So we've dealt with the first point. You're saying the economy was not as bad.
So that is the real sector I have just talked about, the real economy.
Let's take a breather.
Which shows that the economy was strong. I was to come to the financial sector and then the fiscal.
We can deal with that. And of course, this is the point of view. My guest is Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, who is the former Minister of Finance, is MP for Karaga. He's also, you can call him the minority lead on economy and finance. When we come back, we'll now look at what problem he has with the budget. He says he has a lot. He even brought slides to show that there are many issues with the budget. He says the budget is dead on arrival. We'll deal with that when we come back. Stay with us.
Imagine walking into a secure environment you call your own, a home where you are in charge of your own security. But while you dream of a brighter future, shadows could be lurking at your doorsteps and windows. With real-time alerts and a professional response team ready to act, your home is protected around the clock, whether you're away or asleep. Don't wait for safety, create it. Installed by professionals, our systems integrate seamlessly into your home, guarding every nook and cranny. And with our rent-to-own plan, this unmatched security comes with no burdensome upfront cost. Enjoy your safety, payment at your own pace, and peace of mind. Plus, our theft guarantee protection ensures you're covered in case of any loss, giving you even more peace of mind. Secure your home with Home Shield. Make peaceful sleep a habit, knowing we stand guard. Response 1, protecting your world 24/7.
Life is a celebration of moments. Big and small.
The sun is scorching, I'm feeling the heat.
With Piva Drink, every moment becomes a refreshing celebration. From the beach to your home, in every corner of your world, Piva Drink at a burst of refreshment.
Give me Piva cocktail and tangerine.
Celebrate every occasion. Piva Drink, a taste you will love.
P for Piva.
This advert is FDA approved.
Welcome back. We're live on The Point of View. My guest, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam. He is the minority lead on finance and economy, immediate past Minister of Finance. We spent the first part just talking about what economy NDC inherited. We can argue that till the end of the rest of the time. But you said the budget is dead on arrival. And when you do the debates tomorrow in Parliament, you are going to make that point forcefully. Why is the budget dead on arrival?
You know, a number of issues, and I'll take this from three main issues.
Okay.
Right? The first one is the jobs that the budget promises to deliver.
All right.
I don't think they are going to deliver those jobs. I will be very happy if those jobs are delivered, so that those Ghanaians, the youth that do not have jobs, can have jobs. So I'll start with that. So if you look at the budget, they declared a net freeze on employment in the public services. You know, people say it's part of the IMF. We signed the IMF program, but we were recruiting people into the public service, including the people they sacked. You know, when they came into government, they were all recruited into the public service. And so by declaring a net freeze on unemployment in the public sector, they are simply telling the Ghanaian youth who have hopes of getting employment in the public sector that they will not get that. The net freeze will mean that it is only replacements that they can do, right? And this is the very reason why I even think that they sack the people that we employed, so that they will then replace them and then with their people, with their supporters, and say that they have created jobs. When we talk about job creation, we are talking about new jobs and not sacking people who were employed legally and replacing them with other people. They are all Ghanaians. Mm-hmm. And therefore, when people have been employed, you leave them, create new jobs so you can employ more Ghanaians. Okay. That is the way a responsible government should do. You know, so by declaring a net freeze on employment in the public sector, that is one way of telling the Ghanaian youth that this budget cannot deliver jobs.
Clarify that for me. Did he actually say that in the budget? Because I recall asking him during the show that why have you frozen employment? Let me quote him again.
Yes.
There's no freeze on employment. He says, public sector job opportunities remain available, contingent on economic needs and sectoral priorities, unquote. He was sitting in the same chair when he said that. So was it a statement in the budget?
It's a statement in the budget.
That there was a freeze on employment?
Yes. So
really?
I don't know why he will run away from his own words. It's in the budget.
Well, he debunked that, and I didn't, because I didn't have I don't have the exact paragraph.
Yes, if you have the budget, we can make reference to it.
Okay, so that's point number one. You're saying that you don't think the budget will will create jobs?
Yeah, for the public sector, because the minister himself said it, the budget said it, that there is a net freeze on employment in the public sector. Then there's also the Women Development Bank idea, which was to support our women, you know, to do trade and meaningful vocations, you know, creating jobs for themselves, which I also think cannot be delivered. Because how can you, you know, promise to set up a development bank for women, and then you allocate only 51 million Ghana cedis towards the establishment of this bank, when the minimum capital requirement for establishing universal bank is 400 million Ghana cedis. In fact, when it even comes to development finance institutions like what they want to set up, the minimum capital requirement is more. You know, it ranges between 600 million Ghana cedis and 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. In fact, the list of them is the Guarantee Financial Institutions, which Guarantee Development Finance Institution, which is 300 million Ghana cedis. And so this is just deceptive. You have promised the women of this country you will create a women development bank to support them, to create jobs, and then you are putting 51 million Ghana cedis, contrary to what
you think that
the statutory requirement
did he state that was the capital, or that was the preparatory? Because you can start the process of forming a bank by doing various things. For example, your DBG, it was not set up in a year. It was a process.
So is he telling us that the bank will not be established this year?
Because obviously the budget says for the year.
Yeah, but the budget
but he has a 4-year mandate, so he can lay the foundation and develop the bank. So if you are not ready,
why do you even allocate the 51? So that if you don't set up the bank this year, what happens to the 51?
But that is why the budget... The question, I mean, the bank setup, is it only the capital requirement you need? Can't you do technical work? Can't you have different preparations ahead of the setting
of the bank? But the minister should have clarified that.
So he needs to clarify
51 that. Is a seed money for the establishment of the bank.
That cannot be.
That cannot be. 51 million... The minimum capital requirement
is... So whatever type of bank it is, whether it's a development bank or a commercial bank, or universal bank.
Unless he wants to do rural bank or a microfinance, you know, scheme for the women, the minister should come clear.
So there's need for clarity. The 51 doesn't cut it for
51
you.
Really.
Third point still on that.
Yes. And then you have the 24-hour economy, which was the main campaign team. You see, when Nana Akufo-Addo campaigned on free senior high school, in his first budget, 2017, he delivered on it. 24-hour economy has been the feature, the most important feature of President Mohammed's campaign. Now you take the budget and look at the budget. There were only references to 24-hour economy, but there is no program on the implementation of the 24-hour economy. And once there is no program on the implementation, it will mean that there is no allocation of funds towards the implementation. The minister said they will launch it later this year. But even if you launch it and there is no allocation, as there is no allocation, how do you even implement that? So are you going to launch and wait until 2026 when you will make allocation to really implement the 24-hour economy? So this is, again, deceptive as far as job creation is concerned.
I heard Zitano yesterday in Parliament, and I'm bringing this so it gives information that he believes that in the mid-year review, there will be an allocation, and that because the 24-hour economy is private sector led, it's not directly giving money for it, except a few costs. I think he mentioned 700 million may be required, but that may come in the mid-year. I heard him say that on the floor.
I believe it's an afterthought because we have raised this issue, so why will you have a budget at the beginning of the year and you have such an important policy intervention and you do not account for it, only to come and say you will do it in mid-year? You
have the whatever form it takes, they needed to have allocated money to do it.
Towards the implementation, even if it says 700 million. Where is
you're saying that the private sector are the ones who essentially pay for it.
But how do they pay for it?
So they will be incentivized. Well, I'm not here to speak for him. He can speak for himself.
Because some of the institutions that have already started, adopting 24-hour economy, the Minister for Foreign Affairs talked about passport office. Is it a private sector institution?
No.
It's not. Then we've also heard about Ghana Publishing Company. Is it a private sector institution? No.
So no program means no allocation. No allocation means
no implementation.
No implementation.
So these are the issues that I think we need to understand as far as job creation is concerned. Because this budget really...
A lot of people say that the promises they made, they have fulfilled it. And we know some of this. So for example, on the revenue side, they promised to remove a number of taxes. The COVID levy is gone. The emissions tax is gone. The betting tax is gone. In fact, the COVID levy, we are told, so e-levy is gone. The COVID levy, they say it will be removed when the VAT is restructured. So he was quite detailed on that. So you need to give him credit that he promised to remove nuisance taxes, and by and large he has he not?
Well, before I come to the taxes, I want to talk about other areas of promises that this budget is not addressing.
Okay.
Right.
Which means that you tacitly agree that he has fulfilled this one.
I'll come to that.
Okay.
I'll come to that.
Good. So let's continue.
Let's continue. I want to look at other minor issues before I even come to that.
Let's do the minor issues.
So many of the promises they made, a Jumaura program where they said they are going to, they've allocated 100 million, in the main text of the budget, of which 80 million is goods and services. The Nkoko Nkiti, 100 million Ghana cedis, 60 million, or the entire 100 million Ghana cedis is also goods and services. The National Codes, 100 million Ghana cedis, 60 million is goods and services. National Apprentice Program, 300 million cedis, 260 million is goods and services. The Agri for Economic Transformation, 819 million Ghana cedis, all in goods and services. So all the promises are going to be relying on the goods and services budget. But if you look at the goods and services budget, it is heavily underfunded. And I think this is what I'm displaying on your...
Okay. Let me go and see if you can...
Yes, it's heavily underfunded.
So what point are you making here?
So the point I'm making is that you add the goods and services, across all the sectors. GOG, if you come to the expenditure allocation, GOG 10 billion, IGF of 7.8 billion, the foreign loans and grants of 3.7 billion. Together, if you put goods and services in the expenditure allocation to various ministries, departments, and agencies, it amounts to 21 billion Ghana cedis. Meanwhile, in appropriation, only 6.9 billion Ghana cedis is provided. So the entire goods and services budget, is underfunded to the tune of 14.8 billion Ghana cedis.
This is what they would need, but this is what they've provided.
This is what they provided in appropriation.
So they need 14 billion
14.8
to make
billion
up
Ghana
for the
cedis to
goods.
make up. And so if goods and services are heavily underfunded, as we have seen, and all their promises, their major promises, rely on goods and services, how are they going to implement these promises?
Should we not be more nuanced in saying,
are they going to stop?
For the programs that you mentioned,
yes,
like the Akukon Kitinkiti and the Ejumero and Co., because they are new programs,
yes,
you need goods and services to be high to set it up. Then, as you set it up and it begins to grow, yes, your investment expenditure aspect of it can now increase. So that it looks like, because they are all new things.
No.
Because goods and services is like what you used to buy photocopy machine, set up the office. Basically, these are administrative spendings, correct?
But every year, you take the budget.
Yeah.
Every ministry, every department, every agency have their normal goods and services.
But these are new programs.
These are new programs. But I'm saying that the Ministry of Finance will also still need to buy stationery. They still need to buy water. They still need to get furniture for offices, just as the Ministry of Industry, the Ministry of Interior. So the goods and services are all, incorporated in the budget. So if you provide in appropriation 6.9 billion, right, I even doubt if it can take care of the normal goods and services of MDAs. Not to even talk of the new programs that they've introduced in the budget, because 14 billion gap is huge. And I want the minister, yes, for goods and services. And I want the minister to come and explain to me whether he's going to stop the normal goods and services for MDAs and focus on Ejumawura and Kokon Kitinkiti.
So the MDA's goods and services is lower, yes, but the goods and services for the new programs are much higher chunk of the overall.
I'm saying that if you lump all of them together, because if you take every ministry, these programs fall under various ministries.
Correct.
The new promises fall under various ministries.
Yes.
But if you take every ministry, apart from the allocation to the new program, there are also allocations to other goods and services under the ministry. And I'm saying that if you add all of them from all the ministries together, it amounts to 21 billion Ghana cedis. Meanwhile, in appropriation,
it's only
6.9 billion.
So there's a problem there.
There's a problem there.
Good. What else is a problem?
The second problem, and in fact, because of this, I even begin to doubt the fiscal deficit target for 2025, because it will mean that it is understated.
You think the fiscal deficit
will be higher? If the 21 billion is what has gone into the, if the 21 billion has gone into the fiscal and only 6.9 billion is showing in the appropriation, then it means that the fiscal deficit or fiscal balances are understated. That we should bear in mind. Now, the other issue is this, and I want to provide further illustration on two other promises they made.
Okay.
The education priority programs and also the agricultural economic transformation.
You have information on that?
I have some information on that which I'd like to share.
Okay, so
in the next slide.
Can we move? Okay, let me see if I can do this. Is this one?
Okay, this is the education. So you look at the education, they're talking about, free tuition for first-year students in tertiary institutions. In paragraph 374 of the budget, the minister said 449 million has been allocated towards that.
Yes.
Paragraph 375, they talk about sanitary pads for school
292 million.
Yes, 292 billion. And paragraph 388 talks about textbooks of 564 million Ghana cedis. So if you total all of them, it works out to 1.3 billion
cedis.
But if you go to the Ministry of Education and look at the budget allocated for the initiatives and priorities in education, only 800 million.
So you see a shortfall as well.
Yeah, so there's a shortfall about 506 million Ghana cedis. So I'm wondering why the text of the budget is not speaking to the appendices.
Can this be explained by the point he made when he was ending, when he said the various ministries will come to the floor and do their specific sectoral outturns to provide further detail? Because, for the first time, the budget didn't go into great detail on sector initiatives.
That's not what he meant.
Can you explain?
It has to do with the presentation of the budget.
Good.
Usually when you go and present the budget, you present the macro issues, and then you also present the specific ministries.
Yes, he didn't do that.
Yeah, he didn't do that. He wants the ministers to come and do that. But if you take the entire budget,
work with this.
Yeah, but if you take the entire budget, they are there.
Okay.
All the sector, policies and priorities are in the main text of the budget. But what he was reading in Parliament is what he said he was not going to read, the sector-specific issues and the ministers.
So he needs to come and explain where he gets this $500 million cedis from.
Yes, because you cannot promise something in the text of the budget, and then when you go to the appendices, in fact, the meat of the budget is the appendices, because that is where you see the expenditure allocation, and then you have a shortfall of 506 million. It means that you are not determined to fully fulfill your promise, even if you fulfill part of it at all.
Good. What else are you concerned about agri?
The same with agri. The text, paragraph 390 of the text of the budget lists the programs under the Agriculture Economic Transformation Agenda as Feed Ghana program, Ghana Grains Development, Vegetable Development, the Nkoko Nkiti. It puts all of them together and said 1.5 billion Ghana cedis has been allocated. But if you look at the initiatives and priorities under the Ministry of Agriculture, only 924 million has been allocated.
Without thinking for the minister, is it possible that because some, for example, 24-hour economy secretary is under the presidency, could it be that some of these initiatives in education and agri could be carried out by an agency which is under Office of Government Machinery, and therefore the sectoral allocation may not be all you need?
I am not in the mind of the minister. What I do is to take the document that he has presented.
What is on the face of the document? So he should come and explain.
Yeah, and analyze the document. And when I analyze the document, I see him stating in paragraph 390 that he has allocated 1.5 billion. I go to the meat of the budget, which is the appendices,
and the money is not
only 924 million.
So between education and agri, you've already seen over $1 billion shortfall.
Yeah,
because
over $1 billion shortfall.
Sorry, let me go back. You've shown me the 506 million in education, and then you've also, you've also shown 575, so almost 1.1 billion for just education and agri shortfall.
Just 2 years.
And is that all?
There's also the big push.
Oh Lord, today is a big issue. So the big push.
The big push is a $10 billion, program. Right, and $10 billion. If you have to do an average every year, it should be $2.5 billion, right?
Per year.
Per year, and $2.5 billion will give you 40 billion Ghana cedis at 16 cedi to $1 rate, which is the exchange rate the minister is using in the budget. Yet, allocation in the appropriation towards Big Push is just 13.8 billion Ghana cedis. And so Big Push is underfunded to the tune of 26 billion. The minister provided only $800 million instead of $2.5 billion. Unless he wants to say that, in 2026 he will do $3 billion. In 2027 he will do $3 billion, and then another $3 billion in 2028, which I see to be problematic. In this year when he has all the goodwill,
So this 13.8 should have been at least 40.
It should have been 40 billion.
In your view?
Because this amounts to some $800 million and not $2.5 billion.
So are you concerned about these shortfalls to the extent that they signify that he's overpromising, or is it that...
Of course, it's overpromising something he cannot deliver.
But does he have to do it in the first year? Because he has 4 years.
Well, but this year is what we are talking about, and this year should be 2.5 billion.
But that's on the basis
and this is why I'm saying that...
that 2.5 billion you're saying, that's only true if he said he would do the same amount each year. If I have 4 years to pay an amount, I can pay 10% in the first year, pay 30% in the second year, pay another 40% in the third year, and then I'll end with the 20% in the last year. So does he have to allocate a certain amount first year for you to show that he can? Because these are 4-year programs.
Well,
right?
I have been doing budgeting, and I can tell you, the next 3 years will even have more pressures than this year. So if this year he cannot do the 2.5 billion, and he's doing only $800 million.
Because his premise is that things are bad. You see, let's deal with it. The minister said the economy is worse than you are saying. You say the economy is better.
Yes.
Now, his allocations are not enough for what he intends to do, based on what you see in the first year. Now you are taking issue with him, but isn't he being consistent in saying because things are tough in the first year, I can't do so much?
No, but is it true? In 2024, how much was appropriation? 250 billion. This year, how much is appropriation? 290 billion.
So by 40.
So he even has more room.
But
this year.
But he has more programs.
He has more room this year. So if he has more room than even we had in 2024, how can he say that things are hard and therefore he cannot do this and that? Yet he is committed to spending for Parliament to give him 290
so he needs to come
billion.
And explain why these important programs have such large shortfalls of allocation.
He needs to explain
so
that.
we should look at allocation and not the predicted amount that will be needed. Because allocation shows how much what's called appropriation.
Yeah, allocation shows that the program cannot be delivered as promised.
So you've done education, agric, and then big push. So these
are just examples of promises, major promises.
And by the way, as you said, we are just comparing.
Yes.
Road fund is increased from 1.1 to 2.8. So that's quite a big increase. School feeding 1.34 to 1.7. Those has also gone up. Capitation has increased from 84 to 145. Leap from 728 to 953. Can we not say that maybe these are where he is emphasizing? These are all existing programs and existing, which is probably why some of the new programs may not be getting as much money.
Yeah, but he's saying that he's going to generate more revenue. He's talking about a revenue growth of 38 billion Ghana cedis. So he can afford to do
but
this.
But he's 38 billion and his expenditure is 40 more. So it's just basically 200 million.
But that's why I think I need to put this in proper context.
Good.
He's also rechanneled funds, which were meant for other things, into the big push and other programs. For example, ABFA, which used to go to GIF, is no longer going to give. He's brought a bill for us to amend the law so that he will spend it on big push. Similarly, MIF used to get money, mineral income investment fund. He's brought a bill for us to amend it so that they don't get that money any longer. He's giving them just how much? He's taking 80% of their money, right? And so the minister has leverage. Apart from the revenue, he said he can get 38 billion. He has rechanneled resources which were in other sectors. Agenda 111, he's not allocated money for Agenda 111. For example, what is he using that money for? And so let's
do two things. I wanted you to comment on the tax reliefs that he promised.
Which I promised to talk about.
Yes. Do you concede that on that one he has delivered?
Oh yeah, I think that he has delivered, but he has also imposed additional taxes.
Okay.
Right. For example, the growth and sustainability levy increased by 200%. From 1 to 3. To 3%.
Yeah.
When, you were talking about the growth rate, you said the minister attributed that to mining. So if the sector that gives you growth,
you are taxing them more.
is the sector that you are heavily taxing, then what kind of economics are you doing? 200%. I'm not saying don't tax extractive industry, but if you are alluding to the fact that that is what generates or lead our growth, why would you want to tax the hen that lays the golden
And also the problem is that there was a sunset clause for 2025. It's now moved to 2028. So a lot of international investors may be wondering why. Today somebody was saying in a panel I was on that in Ghana the sun never sets because they were given. I think your boss introduced the growth. And he said it will end in 2025. And NATO has come to extend the sunset to 2028.
No, actually, it was introduced by the NDC. And that was the stabilization.
Yes, but you gave it a different name.
We gave it a different name.
Good. So the sun is never setting.
But we also said that it was ending this year in 2025.
Good. And then he's moved it to 2028.
So if he's moved it to 2028, it is not only the one relating to mining that he's moving to 2028.
He's also moved the rest.
The rest. Serious companies across different sectors, and I'll give you the list, and they pay 5%. So if it would have ended this year, it would have meant that beyond this year,
they would have planned for next year. So by they have to re-budget for the next 3 years.
By extending the timeline, you are reimposing the tax on these companies. So it's not only the mining.
So the money is just the increase in 1 to 3, but the others who are paying 5
applies to all of them.
Good.
And I'll just give you, banks are there, non-bank financial institutions are there, insurance companies, telecommunication companies, right? Breweries, inspection and valuation companies, companies providing mining support, bulk oil distributors, oil marketing companies. You know, they will put it in petroleum product prices, right? Communication tower operators, companies providing upstream petroleum services,
but
companies and institutions. So this,
I mean, let's end this segment with this. So, somebody said today during the panel that what the minister is doing appears to be taxing companies and giving individuals relief. Because by removing the e-levy and the taxes he mentioned he was going to remove, and then extending the sunset for these companies for their profit, and then increasing the 1 to 3% growth for also mining, is basically taxing companies' profits. And the relief comes to the consumer by reducing his e-levy charge. And isn't that basic good tax policy where we, the suffering consumers who also vote, will get more, and the large companies who have a lot of money will pay a bit more? On the face of it, you will say it is good. Yeah. But when you tax companies, where does it end? It depends what kind of tax it is. Where does it end? It ends on the consumer. They pass it on. If it's a profit tax? Even that, because they have to maintain their profit levels. Otherwise, they have lost. Right? And when they have lost, what happens? They can't expand. They can't create more jobs. So the convenient way is usually to pass it on to the consumer. So you take, you rob Peter to pay Paul, or you take something, you give me something with the right hand, and you take it back with the left hand. So you expect the companies to punish consumers by passing on those costs? I'm not the one. That's my issue. I'm not the one expecting. Profit is after cost. No. Most of these, companies, they provide services, goods and services. Yeah. They pay indirect taxes. Yes. Isn't it? Which they pass on. That's my point. But you don't pass on a profit. If you have a profit of $1 billion and somebody takes 2% of that, yes. How do you pass that on to the consumer? That will not be fair. But they do that all the time. Profit is different from a tax on your cost. How do you get profit? By being efficient. Profit is by being efficient. Profit is revenue minus cost. Yeah, so if you reduce your cost, you can make more profit. But if my cost is not reduced and I want to maintain the profit level, what happens? I'll pass it on to somebody else to pay. And so you feel that they will do that? That is what happens every day. That is what happens every day. Now, can I show you something on the revenue performance? I'll come back and you show me. Today, he used to be an economics teacher. So today he's really here with his economics notes. Some of your students have texted that you used to teach them. You're a very good teacher. I don't know your nickname though. Maybe that's why they call you Anta. It's funny. I'm told the education minister also used to teach economics in the Tamale area too. So it looks like you guys were teachers. So that's why you went to UCC, right? I went to UCC. But you didn't train as a teacher, you trained as an economist. Yes, I didn't train as a teacher. Wonderful. I didn't do the certificate in education. We are talking to Anta. He is the former minister who is now a shadow minister. Charlie, we're powerful. He was a minister, he handed over to Atu, he's now shadowing Atu. No briefings, please. We'll be right back. And this is a lot of apport he's giving because on the debate tomorrow morning, Charlie, he will fire more. Stay with us.
After a long flight, Safari Homes gives you the peace to unwind. A short drive from the airport, convenient for all. For nature lovers, Safari Valley Resort is a hidden gem, surrounded by lush greenery and luxury amenities. A place where you can truly escape. Now, for water adventure, Aqua Safari Resort has it all. Jet skis, canoe rides, kayaking, and a visit to the estuary. And for more excitement, Safari Eco Park is the perfect place to get closer to some amazing animals.
Visit Safari World in Ghana, together bringing you closer to nature.
Fire pomudi ni agubio. Ghana fueni aje. If we say ya your local spices na ya fra dia ya sankofa natural spice.
Me de go me jollof mu. Ni me still ahuduma. Emanate dance.
Stanley, the barbecue the go on.
Sankofa natural spices. And one you bring 100% natural.
Adofo, mamunye huge mistake. Sankofa natural spices. Didi.
FDA ejedi nkratu yatu.
So you're still here on the point of view. My guest is the former Minister of Finance, started as a Deputy Energy Minister, then Deputy Finance, then Minister of State in Finance, then Minister of Finance, a lot of changes in portfolios, and then eventually, of course, he's an MP, been a two-term MP. Now he is the leader of the minorities economic side. So he is the ranking member of the Finance Committee. We suspect he'll be doing some work on the Economic Committee. There's an Economic Committee as well.
Yeah, which our ranking is Honorable Kojo Nkrumah.
Wow.
And then we have Budget Committee.
So, so those are the three Finance Committees, yes, or Money Committees?
Yes, yes.
So are you on Budget Committee?
No, I'm just on the Finance Committee.
You're on the Finance Committee. Yes. Kojo is chairing the Economic...
He's ranking the Economic and Development.
Ranking. And who is ranking the...
Kogo Kwatin is chairing the Budget Committee. The Budget Committee is chaired by the opposition.
So, wow. So it's not just public accounts now, which Abuna is chairing.
They all used to be under Finance Committee.
So
but Parliament has created...
So Abuna, who was your deputy...
Yes.
Is now chairing public accounts.
Yes.
Kogo Kwatin, who was your predecessor, is chairing budget.
Yes.
Kojo Opon, who was information and also, wow. So your minority is only 87, but you have some strong features there.
Of course.
Very interesting. Because, typically the lawyers tend to dominate the discourse until the budget comes.
Yes.
Then a lot of them keep quiet and the economists start talking.
Over, yes.
Because for the last 2 weeks, it's only you guys have been hearing.
Yes, because it's about the budget.
So if you look at Parliament, between law and economics, which one is more prevalent? Just a general...
I always say that there is law in everything, there's economics in everything.
So both?
Yeah, because economics is about the resources, right? And the law will develop the rules on how to apply the resources.
But it seems to me that the Finance Committee is the most consequential because everything government does, you guys need to approve it.
Yes, even including, agreements and then financial agreements, if you like loans. And so there is something different happening this time. For example, the tax laws have come to Finance Committee, but the Speaker directed that leadership of the Constitutional Committee, Constitutional Legal Committee, should join us.
So it's a joint?
To consider. Wow. Because even though they are financial matters, they are also
legal
legislation. They are laws.
So we will see a lot of joint committee work.
We will see a lot of joint,
Does that help? Is that better?
It helps. It helps.
Adongo will be your chair.
Yes, Adongo is my chair.
How are you going to work with him?
Oh, Adongo and we understand the job we have to do for this country, and so we will work together. We will collaborate. What many people don't know is that at the committee level, there is a lot of cooperation, there is a lot of collaboration, right? And that will guide my working relationship.
Adongo didn't give you, he gave you sleepless nights with his, in opposition. Adongo was wild.
Yeah.
So are you going to pay him back?
No, I don't know.
Adongo was a thorn in MPP's flesh.
I don't know if it is payback time, but I really will do my work to the best of my ability. I have to justify the confidence of my colleagues and my party.
Some people think MPP has started too early, that you should give Mahama some breathing space. He's been in office for barely 60 days. And already, for even this budget alone, when the budget was read, you did a brief press interaction, then you did a full press conference. By tomorrow, there's another press conference in Kumasi on budget. I mean, it's like, why? Why? That's what some people think, that you have started too early. You should wait small. What do you think?
I don't know whether there is any constitutional provision that bars opposition until a certain time. Once power moves hands, opposition has to do its work.
You have to do your work.
You have to do your work. I mean, there is so much at stake in this country for people to say, wait until such a time before you start opposition. I mean, as we are already talking, you can see that things are happening. Some of them are unfavorable things. So should we wait when people are being sacked from their jobs, people who have been legitimately employed? The Ghanaian people bash the MPP so much about Galamsey. Mohammed said he can address it. I mean, the beginning of his term, we are seeing, the lack of seriousness, the lack of commitment. So should we wait until the water bodies are further destroyed before we start criticizing?
Some people may say that something that you couldn't do or did not do, what gives you the moral right immediately you take over to start criticizing the same things? It's almost like because the shoe is on the other foot, it's rich for you to just quickly start asking them to do something that when you were in power you did not do.
Well, if there was something we should do which we are not able to do,
there certainly will be lessons that we have learned. And that is what we have to bring out. You know, we have to talk, share our experiences, criticize them, and then as we criticize them, you know, tell them how best to handle that. And then that's how we develop our country.
Just a last point on that. Do you differentiate between your need to oppose and also country building? And this is not just to you because you're in opposition, because even in government, I believe there are times you feel that let's put politics aside and let's deal with this as a Ghanaian. Are you politicians able to do this? Because for us in the media, we see a lot of opposition when you are in opposition, and we see a lot of government saying, go away, we'll do what we have to do. But there are some issues that may require, so I'll give you an example. US, when they found that China was becoming a big threat, at the time that Joe Biden was president, Republican senators supported sanctions against Chinese technology. And they were very clear in their mind that anybody who will use money to push something that their opponents in China will benefit from, they do not agree. So there was a lot of bipartisan support for those, even prior to Trump. This is Biden time. So you could see them putting America ahead of Republican Democrat. Some people believe that we need to see a bit of more of that in Ghana too.
Well, I think that many people don't know the discussions that go on behind the scenes between government and opposition. There is this common saying that we have our say, they have their way. But what we say, government listens. Government may not admit to everybody publicly that I have listened to what the opposition is saying, but they do listen. I mean, this controversial issue about betting tax, for example, which I talked about, the minister listened, because you came to Parliament and said that you will abolish, you know, taxes on winnings from lottery. And so I understood it to mean winnings from lotto, right? Which you also call betting tax, otherwise known as betting tax. And I said that that betting tax that you are referring to has never been implemented, has never been collected, right? And so he has come back to say that he meant, you know, taxes on bet winnings.
So he confused you?
No, not that he confused me.
He misled you.
My suspicion was that they didn't mean to implement the promise of scrapping the betting tax.
Oh, you sure?
Yes, because in their manifesto, it was very clear that they will scrap the 10% withholding tax on bet winnings. That's the wording they use in their manifesto. So if you come into the budget and you say you will scrap tax on winnings from lottery, otherwise known as betting tax. Bet winning was absent in the statement he presented. And
but when he brought, so your point is that when you said
the betting tax that he referred to was not implemented, because he referred to winning from lotto, right?
But I think you also need to admit that when you said betting tax was never implemented,
yes,
simpliciter, that was also wrong.
No. In fact, if you go to listen to me, you will see the word that. I was referring to its context.
The betting,
I was referring to the betting tax that he talked about in Parliament.
I see.
Which was actually not a betting tax.
So now we're on the same page.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
The one that he's removing is the one that was promised.
Yes. Because he came back to Parliament.
And that one you had implemented.
Yes, that one was implemented.
Some people want me to ask you why your party in government was promising that they would remove the betting tax when you were already in government. And is it that there was a new mindset? Do you understand? So one of the issues was that you're saying you didn't implement, you never implemented the betting tax. You clarified that. But even in government,
yes,
the MPP said Dr. Bamia will remove the betting tax.
Before I even come there, I want to just bring to your notice the wording I used when I was verbatim. The betting tax that they say they have abolished, we never collected the betting tax. We never implemented the betting tax. So to come and tell Ghanaians that if abolished that was never implemented is to deceive the people of Ghana.
So that was the definite article of the
that.
Well, it didn't.
But people didn't even pay attention
because
all of a sudden, the NDC people out there started posting on social media. They won't even listen to what I said.
If you had said, if you had said the tax, withholding tax on winning of whatever.
That's the communication.
If you had used that, you didn't have had this problem.
That's the communication issue. But the fact is, I said the betting tax that they say they have abolished.
Because the betting tax that we know is the one you implemented.
Yes, it's the one we implemented. But the one that was not implemented is what the minister stated in the
So
budget.
now you are clear on that point. But the question to you on the Bawumia point on why he was promising to remove the betting tax.
Yes, you know,
which his own government implemented.
Yes, of course. Governments implement policies and later change, even within the same government. Not to talk of a new government, you know, even though from the same party.
Okay.
Right. So I don't think there was any problem with Bawumia's promise.
Now you're saying that beyond the issues you raise around allocation not being enough and priority initiatives not being well catered for, you also have more problems with the budget. Beyond a lot of things, you still have more problems with the budget. What else do you have with the budget?
I have a problem with the projection of revenue. Right.
Okay.
And I have a table if you
revenue projection.
Yeah, revenue, yes.
You have to pay me for this TA work. It's like I'm just moving up and down. Okay, so let's see.
To do that.
So let's see. This one?
There's one before that. Okay, so here.
This one.
So he's projecting that there will be a nominal growth of 38 billion in revenue.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
In 2024, the nominal growth was about 8 billion Ghana cedis. So he wants to move from 8 billion nominal growth in 2024 to 38 or 39 billion.
Yes.
You know, in nominal growth. But the revenue measures are weak. Very weak revenue measures. First, he has scrapped, you know, some of them, right? And then the others are mostly compliance. So if you go to the next slide, then you will see where the growth is going to come from. The growth
so personal income tax,
yes,
he wants to increase by 5
billion. Companies 11 billion. You see again what I was complaining about. He's heavily taxing companies, and these are the companies that are creating the jobs. So I'm surprised if there is any private sector who is happy about this budget.
But if he removes recalibrates the VAT, yes, some companies will benefit.
How?
Because a lot of them complain about the 21% effective VAT.
Even if they benefit, the data I'm showing you shows that, you know.
But isn't this depend on whether it's profit tax or normal tax on their operation?
This is corporate income tax, yes. This corporate income tax.
So that's post-operation.
So you are taking away the profit that they really will re-inject into expanding and growing and creating more jobs. You limit their ability to do that.
Fair enough.
So
that's 11.
So we did 33 billion. We did 33 billion 1 year on. 1 year on. The difference is 1 year. You're talking about 45 billion.
So you think this 11 is too unfair to these people?
Yeah, to the companies.
But you've already commented on this
jobs for us.
Growth and sustainability. You said
growth and sustainability. I've already talked about that. But VAT. I also said that the minister alluded the mining sector is leading our growth. If you want to tax them, let's review the contracts we sign with them.
Correct.
But not to use taxes to weaken the sector that generates our growth.
Fair enough.
Then you have VAT. Look at VAT. He's talking about 42 billion from 33 billion.
9.3
billion is coming from that. So even with the restructuring of the VAT, which you said some people will benefit.
That's what he said.
It is leading to more collection, which I like. I want him to get the revenue to be able to achieve the objective of the budget. But I'm saying that the measures are weak because most of them are compliance. And I'm wondering how compliance can deliver this revenue.
He made a point about adjusting the tax refund account. The amount was 6% of revenue to 4%, and he believes he will make he will free up some more funds from there to help his revenue points. I don't know if you understand that.
I don't think people understand the refund account. You see, the refund account is government money.
Yes.
Of which 6% is set aside for tax refunds.
For people who do exports and things, VAT and stuff.
Yes. And if at the, before even the end of the year, you see that the tax refunds applications, you know, will not take all the 6%.
That's his point. He said the 6% threshold that was created was too high.
The rest is spent in the budget. So it's already part of government money.
But his point was that the allocation of that extra 2%, it was not clear specifically where it was being sent to.
No. Even if you say it's 4%, the 2% that you spend, you actually would have spent it if only 4% tax refund applications were made.
He claimed here that 2% extra, you spent it on things like SML and things, and that you didn't spend it on budget line items that was clear to anybody. That was his point.
But SML would have been paid anyway. From what source? It's the same budget. That's why I'm saying that there's no savings.
Is it not that allocation issue? Because you can spend money on something productive versus paying an inflated contract.
No, the budget.
So the fact that you save 2% of a tax refund account, if you spend it on something that is not growth encouraging, it's not good for the budget.
No, the budget is a pool. The resources are a pool.
Okay.
Isn't it? The control account keeps all of them, all the accounts, and he moves money here and there. You know, so I don't know how it is a saving because it is already part of government revenue, and it's been integrated into the data on government revenue. It is not a new revenue
because a percentage of an already how much you raise.
Yes. So I don't see what the minister was trying to say. I mean, too many excitements
on that point.
On that point, but really, it's much ado about nothing.
So your summary point here is what?
Yeah. So my point is this: the revenue growth is too ambitious, right? Because the revenue measures are weak. They are mostly compliance, and I don't see compliance because it takes time for compliance to work. You have to invest in infrastructure. There have to be behavioral change in the behavior of the taxpayers. All this, you are not going to achieve that in 1 year. And so I'm really not sure. I'm pessimistic about this revenue growth. And if he is basing most of his programs on this revenue growth, if the revenues don't come in, again, it questions the credibility of the budget.
Because yours was 61 and his is 64.
Yes, I'm talking about where the growth is coming from.
The sources.
64% of the total revenue is where he's hoping to get the growth from. Right. And that revenue growth is 4%.
You would have expected more from the VAT side.
Yes, from the VAT side. And VAT is mostly compliance. You know, the company's tax is compliance. Personal income tax is mostly compliance.
But to the extent that people say VAT being an indirect tax can be more inflationary because it's like we are paying more for the things we buy. Yes. So that may not be beneficial for the overall economy as VAT keeps rising, as against somebody's profit that you are taxing.
I can tell you that there are trade-offs in every policy. Trade-offs are there, right? And this is why when you are addressing an economic issue, you are seeking to balance.
Okay.
Right. Sometimes you tax a place heavily, another place less, because you want to achieve a certain objective. Don't be surprised the next day it's the reverse. So there are.
So is this all, or there are other issues you have?
Yeah. So the most important issue is the fiscal manipulation.
Fiscal manipulation.
Manipulation of data.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And that, if you allow me, I will want to come to.
You want to come to the screen yourself?
But even the lean government issue is also there. I actually
no, since we don't have too much, do you want to deal with this one? Do the fiscal manipulation.
So let me do
this one.
Yes, this one.
Okay.
If you allow.
Come and so now you sit down. Let me also sit down and watch you. So explain what you want to do. So, I'll sit in your chair now.
So this is how they manipulated the fiscals. The minister said overall balance on commitment is.
Don't touch the screen. Now it's to move. So just point to it.
7.6.
Yes.
And primary balance on commitment is deficit 3.6. All they wanted to say is that we have breached the IMF program. Okay. So the IMF program has targets. And the target for overall balance is deficit 4.2. Now the minister brought out deficit 7.6. And the IMF target, I didn't tag this up. And the IMF program target for primary balance is surplus 0.5%. They brought out negative deficit 3.6.
For 2024?
Yeah, for 2024, which means we have breached. But really, this is what they did. The next page, so that I'll explain something.
So the next page, yes, to go forward. Here it is.
Okay. Now this is the agreement we signed with the IMF.
Okay.
The technical memorandum of understanding, which defines the primary fiscal balance. Defines the primary fiscal balance cumulative from the beginning of the fiscal year, so it was supposed to be arrears, accumulated in 2024, not before 2024. And then it is measured as the difference between the primary balance on cash basis from the financing side and of the net change in the stock of payables. Net change in the stock of payables of the central government reported in gift mix. That's also very material. So first, it must be from the fiscal year, and it must be reported in gift mix. And it should include payables to statutory earmarked funds, arrears to them, and then also arrears to IPPs and fuel suppliers, all within the fiscal year 2024. Now let's go back and I show you.
Okay, so the arrow is next to you. You go back here.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. So
this one.
Yes. Okay. So if you look at this,
yes,
the arrears clearance, payables arrears clearance, we cleared about 36 billion. We're supposed to clear 11 billion. We cleared more than that, 36 billion. Now the one I just defined is the payable buildup.
Okay.
Which is used for the calculation of the primary balance. Change in payables buildup reported in gift mix. It was mentioned in the definition, including what? Payables to earmark funds and payables to IPP and fuel suppliers. So I come back here.
No, go for it.
Go forward.
One, yes, this one. No, you've gone too far. Go back.
This is what I want to use.
Okay, good.
This is the minister's data in the budget. And outstanding BTAs, that's those reported in gift mix, right? He says it's 18 billion. The 18 billion includes what? The payables, arrears reported in gift mix for MDAs, which is 8.5 billion.
Yes.
The one to earmark funds is 8 billion. And then the one to IPPs is 923 billion. You can see them here.
Yes.
Statutory funds, IPPs.
So total is 18.2.
Added gift, right?
Yes.
And the total is 18.25.
Correct.
So the definition, as I have given you,
is what is presented here.
Is what is presented here, 18 billion.
Good.
Right.
Good.
Now this 18 billion, of which change in payables build-up reported in gift mix, that's the 18 billion, 18.2 billion.
Yes.
Now this 18.2 billion is already reflected in expenditure lines, various expenditure lines, compensation, goods and services, and so it does not appear here. Other outstanding expenditure claims, where you now use it to determine the overall balance and the primary balance. It doesn't appear, that's why you don't see it there. Right. Now what the minister has done is to bring some 49 billion, which is alien to the fiscal framework. And this 49 billion is a stock of arrears. Arrears accumulated over several years. Remember I was telling you...
Because it's unreleased claims.
Yes, because unreleased claim. And I was telling you, the arrears that should go into the primary balance calculation should be those from the beginning of the fiscal year, 2024. Now you bring 49 billion stock accumulated over areas, several years, some dating back to 2012. And all of a sudden, you brought it into the fiscal framework.
Added to the 18
you added it
to make it 67.
49 billion. The 18 is not here because it's already reflected in various expenditures. And it's only left for the cash to come in to extinguish them from the gift mix. But this 49 billion, which is a stock accumulated over several years, and not 2024, the minister brought it and then used it to influence the fiscal framework.
So you're saying he's trying to paint a more negative picture.
So you have total revenue minus total expenditure minus this money he has brought, which is alien. And then that is what is giving you the higher fiscal deficit.
So for you, the fiscal deficit is actually supposed to 3.4.
Yeah, if you actually take the 49 billion, what you get is deficit 3.4.
Not deficit 7.6.
Not deficit 7.6.
So you believe that we've met the
and that would have beaten the
IMF criteria
of 4.2 deficit. And if you do that for the primary balance, you get a surplus 0.6, which is higher than the IMF target of 0.5 surplus. The minister didn't want this good news to say that the MPP did well.
But he also claimed that you left other payments for them. For example, in the road sector, you signed contracts worth over 100 billion, and money was only made available for 3 billion.
Those are commitments. And when we talk about commitments, they haven't even been executed yet. They haven't been processed and audited. So how does it affect government fiscals? Commitment means you sign a contract, the contract hasn't even been delivered. It's not been executed. So bringing it even into the budget reading, I didn't know what they wanted to achieve.
Cocoa board owing about
but they don't come in here. This is central government operations.
I know. So what about Cocoa board and ECG?
It's a different thing you want me to address.
Okay,
I just wanted to...
So your point is that
he manipulated the data.
Okay, he'll have the chance to respond in Parliament.
Yes,
so we'll see how that works.
To bring out, fiscals that will pay the MPP. But do you know that the IMF has asked for an audit on this?
So you believe that based on what you supplied, they'll be comforted? The numbers that you give them are correct?
Yeah, the IMF has asked for an audit on this. And if it is established as I have established that he manipulated the data, Ghana will be cited for misreporting. And Ghana will be fined.
Why is IMF like our class prefect? Why are we all talking IMF? Don't you have men who have
No, because you have a program with them.
So what? Are they the only people we owe?
No, but if you have a program...
We owe other people. Do they tell us how to calculate our numbers?
Of course.
Aren't you guys as government and opposition or deferring to IMF too much?
Not that we are deferring
because you owe people in Eurobond. No, I don't want to come and tell to calculate your deficit.
No. The point is that once you have a program with IMF, there is a contract. If you don't want their money, don't go for their money.
Can't we change the terms of taking their money?
Once you go for their money and you sign the contract.
Because, for example, the minister said on the VAT, they are going to have an IMF team come to help them to recalibrate the VAT because it's
technical capacity. Yeah, so you are even relying on them for technical capacity.
Are you telling me that when we take all your UCC, Legon, and Gimpa professors in economics, they cannot a VAT we've been operating since 95. They cannot help us to recalibrate. They need IMF to help us to do that.
Bernard, in the last 4 years, have you done a course? Have you gone for some training?
No.
You haven't done any new training?
No, not in the last year. Why are you asking me?
That is how technical capacity is.
So IMF should come and help you.
You know so much, but there are other areas. Every day things are changing.
But for a sovereign, I think my concern is you are an economist. A first-class economist.
Yes.
Atu is a tax. He has a PhD in tax. He went to Oxford. Are you telling me that you need bureaucrats from IMF to come and help you redesign your VAT?
No, you see, knowledge is fluid, right? Knowledge is fluid.
Yeah.
You can know so much. But there are other areas you
but
will
knowledge
need.
is also contextual.
And I can tell you.
So why should a technical guy from France come and show you how to do your VAT?
No. It's contextual, but it is the principle. And the principle can be applied anywhere to the context.
But the reason I'm concerned about this is that
I have problems.
The reason I'm concerned about this is that you see, we see too much policy space to people who don't have the same stakes as you. You have people in Karaga who wait for you to provide them with resources.
No.
So why should an unaccountable somebody from Washington come and be helping you or tell you how you should calculate or redesign your VAT? What's the point in that?
Let me explain this to you. As I speak to you, there are Ghanaians who work in the IMF, providing technical support to other countries. You see, because of practice, if practice over time, you gain more experience. And so the handlers of the economy may not be as experienced as those who have worked in other countries and they have now moved to work with the IMF, with the World Bank.
I agree with that. But
with the benefit of technology, let me end. With the benefit of technology and emerging knowledge that you may not even have access to.
I agree with that.
They are better equipped.
But the truth is that there is also the need for some ideational independence. Okay. You've worked in Ghana's economy at various levels, from MC of Tamale to Minister of Finance. So the point is, look, when we did the economic forum, there were people in the room who are very experienced. Why can't we use locals? Because you see, a lot of times when somebody begins to now pry into and tell you what to do in your economy, the view is that some of that perpetuates the cycle. That's why you go back there 18 times.
No, but Bernard, this is the simple thing. If you go to a bank and take a loan, you won't go by the terms of the loan.
Yeah, but in terms of loan and telling you how to run your economy.
No, you have to answer this. Because the terms of the loan, they don't actually run the economy.
They come and do a staff visit. They tell you exactly what to do, and you have to go and report to them every time.
The past is gone.
For $3 billion?
In the past, when they had to bring their own conditions, now you negotiate on equal terms. And you agree what you want to do. For example, is it an IMF that should tell us that we should control expenditure?
No, they shouldn't.
Is it IMF that should tell us that we should improve on commitment control? It is not IMF.
Fair enough.
We say it, and then we say, give us money to implement these measures to achieve that. Then the IMF said, well, we'll give you the money, but we will monitor you and ensure that you do it. That's what happens.
Tomorrow, I wish you good luck in the debate. We'll be covering it. We'll be covering it live on television. So Dr. Amin is leading the minorities charge on the economy, and Atu Forcing will be on the other side. We wish them both well as Ghana proceeds and progresses. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Something magical is